episode of the Jolly TLDR podcast. I'm excited today. We have Ray Grieselhuber here. Ray, you're with DemandSphere, and I'm particularly excited because there's a lot of nervousness in our space right now in SEO. People are concerned, are the SERPs as valuable as they used to be? Their clients don't necessarily feel that. But when we started talking, of course, you can give suggestions. Your tool can help people with their rankings, but we hit on the topic of click-through rate. And so today's episode for people who already know how to increase rankings, but aren't really sure what that's going to do for them if they're going to get the click-throughs, i.e. the sales clients need. We're going to dive into that today. And so, Ray, thank you so much for joining. Please take the mic.
Sure. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, you want to just dive into this particular topic? If we can go. Yeah, okay. So we spend at DemandSphere, we're an analytics platform. We're a data company. We process tons of data. We focus primarily on enterprise, e-commerce, and programmatic SEO. That's kind of our main focus. And we work with in-house teams, work with agency teams. And so we get involved in the conversations where it's, you're looking at portfolios of, hundreds of thousands of keywords and SERPs and trying to tease out what's relevant for that. And so the way, it can turn into a very long conversation pretty easily, but put simply, the way we look at it is we talk about this concept in digital marketing, of course, of post-click analytics, so basically everything that happens on your website after someone's clicked on a SERP or someone's clicked on a link on some other website. We have log data, we have web analytics data, we have, customer experience data, like all these different things that analyze what happens after that click. But the industry is still very much undervaluing the amount of data that's available before that click. And really the best way to get that almost anywhere, but definitely in the context of SEO, of course, is on the SERP. And so you have metrics like, okay, my ranking, my CTR, impressions, and so forth, and clicks. And those are all what I call what KPIs, what happened. But they don't really tell you the why. And what is really important about what everyone's worried about correctly now is why our CTR is going to be affected. So it still kind of remains to be seen what's going to happen with SGE this year. But it's definitely making people start to question things. Obviously, the SERPs are far richer and more complicated than they were, even 5 years ago, definitely more than they were 10 years ago. And so basically people are still kind of stuck in this mode of, okay, I'm ranking position 1, what's going on? Why is my traffic declining? And that's because of the CTR, of course. And so our argument and our whole methodology and product focus is around helping people understand the why of what factors are impacting the CTR, and then understanding how you can model what the maximum CTR should be and what amount of traffic you can get from that. And you have to get pretty granular in the way that you do that. So that's kind of a big part of what our business is offering that to our customers.
Is it as simple as, or do you have thoughts on, I was at MozCon Brighton last year, a lot of talks on search channel diversification. So we're not just Google now. Obviously, we know Bing, DDG have been there for a long time, but talking about TikTok and YouTube, and TikTok last year made news for being like the largest search channel, or was it 2022 at one point? So is it as simple as that, or do you have thoughts on that, or is it really more SGEs coming, the kind of dynamic SERPs that people have been talking about?
I think it's both. There are people who are not even convinced that SGE is indeed coming. I kind of remain neutral on that. Just wait and see. So there are some people who are like, it's not going to come. That may be wishful thinking. I guess I lean a little bit more towards the fact that it will probably come in some form, but remains to be seen. Yeah, definitely the multi-channel search, set of factors is relevant too, and it depends a lot on what market you're in. So we work in the US market. Obviously Google is still going to be huge, but we do see if your audience is more of like the tech developer hacker news crowd, DuckDuckGo may be a lot more relevant to you than Google would be, for example. Or in Japan, where we have a lot of customers as well, Yahoo Japan, depending on which segment you're in, is still 30%, 40% of search market share. It's a completely different entity than Yahoo in the US, and so that's a big one.
These are underserved as well, as far as I see. In the SEO masterminds I'm in, every time somebody comes in and posts, I married into China. I know we have similar kind of personal lives going on.
Yeah.
You married into Japan, and it's like every time someone posts, can anybody help out with Baidu? It's total crickets. And I'm like, let me see if I can contact someone through a friend of a friend. But there's a lot of search going on in Asia, and they don't necessarily use Google.
Korea is the same way. You have Dom and Naver, and it's like your Google is maybe 1% or something ridiculous, like that in Korea. So you have to understand where your market is. There is, TikTok is obviously very interesting. YouTube is huge. It depends on who your audience is, depends on what they're looking for, it depends on where they are. Amazon is something I think that a lot of e-commerce companies, for example, are very mistakenly relegating Amazon search to like the e-commerce department, and like the fancy SEO departments. They get to focus on Google, and they barely even talk to each other. I've talked to so many teams where it's like, yeah, those guys are over there, and it's kind of like almost like a little bit looked down on. I'm like, this is a major part of where your audience is. Why would you not want to understand, where your users are on both search engines, and why would you not want visibility into that? So I think it's very important.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, so I know you have to be sensitive about client info, as we all do in SEO, but you also mentioned you'd be comfortable sharing a few screenshots of private info redacted. Can you walk us through what some advantages are that some of us could look into? And someone like me, we're not enterprise at Jolly, obviously. We wouldn't be the best fit. But I think some of this resonates with some of the pain points I face as an owner. I certainly struggle with what now after we've achieved a certain ranking for ourselves. We're like, who are they that's coming to our site? What is their intent? These kind of things.
Definitely. Let me share my screen here, and I've got a demo site that we'll be going through for the most part, and then I've got one that has a little bit more redacted information that's just like a screenshot. You should be able to see my screen here.
Just fine.
Yeah, okay. So the demo site we're going to be using here is List. They're a UK-based fashion e-commerce kind of broad aggregator of a lot of different brands. And so I like to start from this view because obviously everything when we're talking about SERPs starts from the perspective of a single keyword and a single SERP. And turn this off to make it a little easier to see.
This is in Demand Sphere. You're
correct. Yeah, this is our view. Demand Sphere. We have a couple of different offerings. Our main platform offering is called Demand Metrics, and so we're looking at demand metrics right now. This is the core of all of our analytics. We have another offering called SERP Intelligence, which is basically goes even deeper on this. And what we've done is we've indexed every single facet of the SERP and put it into a data warehouse powered by BigQuery on Google Cloud. And it's growing really fast just because for the companies that are like very data and analytics heavy, they're all used to using BigQuery now, and it allows them to answer any question even faster. We're always on the development side and demand metrics. We're always working very hard to get new features out and new views on the data out there. But at the end of the day, if you can just look it up using SQL, you've got your answer right there, and you can build whatever else you need to on top of that too. So that's kind of a joint way to get at a lot of this data. But this is our main platform, and one of the things that we do is every SERP that we're monitoring, we store that SERP basically forever, as long as you're a customer. And so you'll get a live SERP archived in our system, and you can always go back. We have date ranges. You can go back. You can go back here. You can compare. So we have this compare feature where you can compare two different SERPs. So if I wanted to look at desktop versus mobile, you can come in here and say, okay, well, desktop on January 16th look like that. And we are like way zoomed in here.
Yeah, and I saw that Google UK. I was gonna ask what location does this pull?
Yeah, we can pull anything here. For some reason, mobile is super zoomed in, so I'll just stick with desktop for now. But basically, you can compare them. You can go back to different date ranges. And then we have this detail view, which basically is like the parsed out version of that SERP as well. And so this is where you start to think about, from a user perspective, just turn this off again so we can zoom in. From a user perspective, you search on, in this case, Fendi track pant, saying, okay, track pants. Right away, obviously, the CTR is going to be lower than what the standard CTR models, which we'll talk about more in a minute, would predict, simply because of how far down that first organic rank is being pushed. And so we have this concept of organic ranking, but also visual ranking. And the visual rank of the images here would be position 1 from the user perspective. They're just looking at, okay, this is the first thing that I see. So as far as most users know, they're just looking at the first search result. Obviously, from an SEO perspective, we'd say, no, this is the actual first organic ranking.
Well, that was a big takeaway for me anyway, maybe not news to anyone else, but at MozCon, there were several speakers talking about learning to reframe how we look at the SERPs, because whether SGE is coming or not, the SERPs themselves, the landscape is always changing. And if we're just going to insist to ourselves the first rank starts halfway down the page, we're kind of missing the boat in terms of serving our clients.
Yep, exactly. And you can see on this right-hand side, this is from January 1st. On January 1st, you actually had popular products showing up as a SERP feature. And you can come in here and you can see that this is showing up here as well. And so when you come in here, you can expand this and you can see that a user is going to be confronted with a huge amount of product listings way before they even get to the first ranking, organic ranking. And so this is one of the reasons why I'm always saying simply monitoring your rankings alone is nowhere near enough, because you're missing, potentially 30% of the picture, 40% of the picture, simply through the nature of the way the SERP is built. So that's a big part of it. So just getting that data and understanding it and being able to compare how things are changing is, a big one. Do you want me to stop there for any questions or anything before I go to the next point?
No, this makes sense. I think I should keep my mouth shut here and let you do the next step.
Yeah. So then the next step is basically, we've all had, an SEO forever. Anyone who's been doing analytics, we have a lot of people use the word forecasting. I prefer the word modeling, just because Google is such a non-deterministic environment that it's hard to really forecast. What you can do is model what things should be given a certain set of assumptions. And so, there's kind of the standard CTR model in the SEO world. There's a few of them out there, but obviously, with the way things are shaping up now, your CTR model could be very different depending on what segment, what set of keywords you're looking at, whether or not certain keywords are in the same keyword cluster, and that sort of thing. And so we're big believers in getting much more granular in the modeling of what your CTR is going to look like. And so we have a feature in here called CTR Lab, where you can come in here. You can customize this based on your own data. You can upload data. And also you can basically have it automatically build out pre-clustered or pre-grouped CTR models based on your Search Console data. So obviously Search Console data is a vast trove of interesting data about your site. And you can combine those metrics with all the pre-click stuff that you're getting on the SERP to really get a better understanding of how things. So once you save a model, you can use that, and then you can basically use that to.
Are you also able to kind of, maybe reverse is the wrong word, but to focus on a single URL and see where it's tracking over time, like in that, not model.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So we have keyword analytics and content analytics, and so you can see everything from the keyword side. You can also see everything from the URL side.
I see.
Yeah, so it's all in there. Basically, we just take this data and create a massive.
Oh, had I waited, I see down in that table below.
Yep. No, all good. So one of the things that you can see here, I don't have it built out now, but what you can see is this adjusted curve. This is one of the potential models that you could create where you've adjusted your own. But you can have any number of these, and we have like a whole custom dashboard and reporting, part of this platform. And so you can basically say, okay, I want to group my CTR models based by different keyword segments or groups. And then you can basically get much more accurate CTR analytics about what you think your potential traffic should be based on actual data coming from Google Search Console. Does that make sense?
So I'm possibly jumping too far ahead, Ray, but just being thoughtful about the time we have together and the listener here. What can we do once? I mean, this is a very robust tool, so I'm probably oversimplifying the needs you can fulfill here. But one of the objectives is like how do we increase click-throughs to the pages we want? So
Yep.
So where's how do we tie this together, or am I jumping too far ahead?
It's not jumping too far ahead. It kind of comes into what actions you glean from this. So what we're focused on with this particular set of screens here today is basically showing the why of what's happening, what is the impact. On the execution side, that's going to depend on what your CMS environment looks like. It's going to depend on what tools you have in place for that. So
Also, the team dynamic, right? You went into that a little earlier.
Yep.
The enterprise clients, as many of us SEOs know, it's one thing to make a suggestion. It's another thing to see it done.
That is also one of the biggest problems, in the industry. I think it's why you see a lot of interest on integrating more into the site and giving SEO teams more power over the content on the website. And so this has obviously been kind of a historical struggle between product teams and IT teams and SEO and content teams, because there's lots of different factors at play there. And so, how you actually go about that to a large degree does depend on the way your company is set up. And then, there's different automations, we can put in place to make that work. But at the end of the day, you need someone kind of guiding that process.
Well, just extending the sidebar just a little, there was a fantastic talk at Moz by Jackie Chu, who's the head of global at Uber, and she gave a talk to educate people like me on how you find your allies in an enterprise situation. It was really awesome. She gave some examples. She said, if you want to get something done, befriend the engineers, give them bug reports, and while they're at it fixing that bug, which they love to do, maybe they could slip in something you really want it done. Obviously, we all know if you want the execs on your side, make sure you're leading the sales, right?
Exactly.
With the legal team, she said, point out when things are not compliant. And there's examples in the news of sites that have been sued, class action, when they're not compliant. So help them out there. And it was pretty cool. I know it's just a sidebar per se, but
no, I think that it really gets into the key issue because, I think a lot of times, and I'm going to be writing about this probably in the next couple of days, but I think that one of the major, I don't know if you'd call it a trend, or one of the things that we're starting to see emerging is that a lot of times the end consumer of a lot of these insights, or the people who end up taking action on the things that we're always talking about in the SEO world, may not even be the heads of SEO anymore over the long term. It may end up being the people who have on the product teams who have finally gotten the message, we got to make these changes. Maybe, IT may be a little bit slower, but they're going to start making changes as they're getting hammered about, performance issue. And the real prize, of course, is going to be the executive teams. If you can get the executive teams to buy in on all of this, that's where you start to see a lot of changes happen, very fast. So I think that from our perspective, even as a business, those people are actually kind of the ultimate buyer, even more so than the direct SEO teams, if we can get them to really understand.
That's right. Yeah, and you can't really overstate what you said, the product, right? If you can find the product champions internally and you can find ways to help them, they're going to make things happen for you. Whereas
exactly.
the in-house SEO may be just as frustrated as anybody.
The dynamic is different depending on, like I know some great SEO managers, but the ones who are successful and happy are the ones that do have that executive buy-in and that product buy-in. And the ones that are frustrated and have been there for 10, 15 years and it's like nothing's really changing, but they don't really want to go anywhere else, they probably don't have that level of executive buy-in, and so it just becomes like a self-perpetuating system where things are not working as well as they could.
Right. I think you and I could keep going a long time, but we try to keep these tight. So we could extend, we could plan around two, we could leave this as a nice teaser for people, but I hope that what people saw thus far of Demand Sphere will clue them into like, I don't know. I haven't been inside, but I'm guessing we saw 1% or less of functionality.
That's about right. Yeah, maybe 5. Yeah, 5. It's not much.
I mean, you've been at it, what, 12 years?
Started the company in 2010, so 14 years this year.
14, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
There is something I'd like to ask, and it may catch you off guard because we didn't talk about it beforehand.
Sure.
We have this question we like to end these with. You can think about this as a user, as a practitioner. You provide a tool, whatever hat you want to wear. If there's anything you could change about the search experience, what would you want to change?
Just search in general. That is a really interesting question. I care a lot about privacy, as a developer and just someone who's always been very focused on privacy. I'm a huge critic of overreach in many different forms. And I because of that, I really like certain projects. I was, a big promoter of DuckDuckGo and still like what they're doing, but I've seen some things that, raise a little concern. I haven't fully validated, so don't quote me on that. But I wonder. I just hope they're continuing to push things in the right direction. But there's another new engine called Coggy.com that I really like their concept and their idea. Something that I've thought for a long time would be great is search as a SaaS. You pay for it, so there's no ads. You're not the product.
Like I pay for YouTube Premium. I still get the enroll though.
But not with Coggy. Yeah, like it's supposedly, right? Like it all depends on trust, but the model is since you're funding them directly as a customer, they're not selling your data to other people. I think that is what really needs to happen. They also give you, some really cool features around curating things a little bit more, and they've got their own, chat type thing. And so there's a lot of great stuff. If you've never seen them, go check them out because they're an amazing team, in my opinion.
That's awesome, Ray. Thanks for your time today. Is there anything I should have asked that I didn't that you would add?
No, I think, obviously when we're looking at keeping things kind of short and sweet, it's a good way to whet the appetite. I think, like I can talk about this stuff forever. I'm sure we could always go longer if we wanted to.
Yeah, and you do, right? You just came back from Japan before the winter break.
Yep. I was over there for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. If you're ever keen to come back, we could do a round 2 and dive into another.
Sure. I'd love to.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Hope you have a great day.
Thanks, you too.